The title of this video is a pretty simple question that can potentially be answered by yes or no. But of course, that is not enough with me, so I'll dive into a more in-depth view of the problem. Hand traps have pretty much always been playable and will always be, but at the same time, just because you can play hand traps doesn't necessarily mean you should. It's so easy to incorporate hand traps like Ash and Imperm into your deck, granted how generic they are, but at the same time, how about the other hand traps? And should you play a lot of hand traps or just a few? Should you mix hand traps with board breakers or only play one or the other? So you see, the most simple of problems can sometimes be super complicated because there can be a lot of variables to take into consideration. First of all, I'm a firm believer that if you want to play hand traps, try to play maybe at least around 9. Playing like 3 or 6 hand traps is a little awkward because the odds of drawing them on your turn 1 going second will be really low, but you can still dead draw them in the late game. And it also makes drawing double hand traps extremely rare, and sometimes you actually want that against the combo decks. Sometimes you even want to draw triple hand trap, and that's the kind of thing that you can achieve if you're playing like 15 hand traps, but at the same time, a lot of decks cannot afford that luxury. I guess Sprite is that one deck that can play a lot of hand traps at the current moment, and Kashtira is that kind of deck that can maybe play like Ash and Imperm, but not really anything more than that. I'm saying that because Kashtira can have all the hand traps in the world, and they might still lose to a single Book of Moon going second. If you want to play hand traps, you have to have a specific strategy in mind, not just play Effect Veiler and assume that it will be good against everyone. Hand traps are kind of like concessions. You choose to beat something, and in exchange, you also accept to lose against something else. By playing a card like Effect Veiler or Infinite Impermanence, for example, you're gonna have a really good matchup against combo decks, but at the same time, a really bad matchup against trap decks like Labyrinth. And again, Ash is that one exception because it's really generic, it hits pretty much everything, so it's the safest hand trap to play. But if the only hand trap that you can play is Ash, I'd actually advise you to stay away from it because then you're playing a hand trap that randomly turns on triple tactic talents for no reason. Imperm as your sole hand trap is a little more logical because at least it doesn't turn on the triple tactic cards and it doesn't lose the call by the grave. You can also draw it for turn and negate spells and traps with it, so at worst it's basically just another Forbidden Chalice. And by the way, if you can use your hand traps for their typing or for their tuner aspect, then that's actually a really good argument to play them. And some hand traps can have dual utility, so for example, Ghost Mourner is not just an effect veiler, but also a win condition and time. So what I recommend is for you to make an Excel spreadsheet of every single hand trap and also every single deck. And then after that, determine the score of each hand trap in your list depending on their matchup against every single deck in your list. The hand traps with the highest scores for that given format are the hand traps that you will be playing in your deck. Now, during the Tearlaments format, the Bestial monsters were only really broken against Tearlaments. They weren't really good against the other decks, but the likelihood of playing against Tearlaments was so high that it was actually reasonable and logical to main deck them. Therefore, you can also use a weight system for your list so that you can determine whether or not a deck is, likely to be encountered in a tournament or not. If you guys are interested in me making an Excel spreadsheet, I could definitely do it. Just make sure you smash the like and subscribe button. But yeah, as I said, I believe that Ash is pretty much the only hand trap that anyone can afford to play in this format because it's broken against Despia and it's still really good against everything else. But again, the issue and the compromise is that you start losing to triple tactic talent, something that you will not lose against if you're not playing hand traps in the first place. Now, Imperm would probably be my second call, and Nibiru might actually be my third. You can also definitely play Gamma. I think it's a really broken hand trap, but it depends on what deck you're playing, of course. You can also play Droll and Logbird, but it's a little too specific, so main decking it might be a little dangerous. And Ghost Bell is extremely good against Despia because they commit so much into their expulsion that if you negate it, then they kind of have nothing after that. So overall, I definitely think that you can get away with only playing board breakers and not hand traps. I don't really think they're necessary. But no board breaker really takes care of the gimmick puppet lock that Despia can do, so watch out for that. You can compensate that approach by main decking board breakers and then side decking Ash and Ghost Bell so that you can still beat Despia and everything else. But yeah, in conclusion, don't feel, like you have to play hand traps because you can also get away with just playing board breakers in a diverse format like this one. If we were in a tier 0 format, I would say you kind of have to play hand traps because a lot of the tier 0 decks, they really don't care about the board breakers at all. And the reason for that is because they can usually search counter trap cards or cards that really do not care if you have something like a Dark Ruler at this point. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.